Hear me clap twice. Gang, let's go to work. Hey, yo, I'm grateful that you're here. Man, we understand you could be a lot of places, but you're here, and for that reason, we're fired up. We're grateful, especially in this time, as we're about to jump into God's Word, and prayerfully hope that, man, as we're getting into God's Word, that God's Word gets into us, and that this time is really a potentially impactful time for every single person in this room. But it can only be impactful if you do two things. Everybody say two things. Number one, and I got to spend a little time on this one. Look, hey, it's a bad time to talk, mess with the person next to you, play on your phone, and I love it, man. Y'all are energetic, you're hype, you're excited to be here. I'm grateful for that. But don't let that excitement spill into distraction. So it's important, and I just ask for your undivided respect and attention for the next maybe 8-10 minutes or so. So if you can be undivided, attention up here, totally focused on what's going on up here in front of you on the stage for the next 18 minutes, no talking, no messing with the person next to you, recognizing that your actions not only affect your ability to understand it, but also the person next to you's ability to understand it. If you can be focused for me, say, I got you, Nick. I'll take your word. I'll take your word on that. I was telling the team, you know, guys, if someone's talking, that must mean they want some attention. So, just let you guys know, let's be locked in today. I trust that you will. I believe that you will. And I'm hoping that you will. Number two, and I wouldn't even say more importantly at this point. I would just say an important fact, number two, is it's a bad time to move from your seat. I'm going to save you an awkward situation. Bad time to move from your seat, use the restroom, or leave the room for any reason, because there's going to be some really important principles unpacked in the room. And it's hard to be impacted by principles said in the room if you ain't in the room. So take a load off. Take a breather, and I'm going to respect your time. I got you. 8-10 minutes on the dot. I got you, Avery. But I need you to respect me while I'm up here on the stage. If you can do those two things, say, I got you, Nick. I use that one on the first one, which I usually don't, so it kind of messed me up there, but that's all right. Gang, we're in part 4. In my notes it says part 3. We're in part 4 of a series we're calling R.I.P, Death to the Old Me, which we're looking at vices, strongholds, issues, sins, that in theory as a Christian should be in the past. But we have found that they have crept into the present. We've looked at, name some things we've looked at. What have we looked at? First week was what? Starts with an A. Okay, good. We've looked at anxiety. We've looked at victim mentality. We've looked at pride. This week, if you're taking notes, the title of this week's message is Rest in Peace to Loneliness. Rest in Peace to Loneliness. I'm going to teach a little bit here. I know I've kind of been preaching at you after that last song, but let's learn a little bit for a second. Genesis 2:18, and the context is talking about God's creation of the world. It says a lot of things were good. Everything was good. The mountains were good. The birds were good. The land animals were good. The water was good. The grass was good. Plenty of things were good. Everything was good except one thing was not good. It was not good for man to be alone. There's a statement that rolls around that God is all I need. But according to His Word, that statement is not entirely accurate. We need people too. We need people too. It's not good for us to be lonely, isolated. In fact, if you want a definition, if you're a note taker in here, loneliness is the lack of authentic relationships with people who you can count on, come to in hard times, and keep you accountable. In a world watered down, hear me. In a world watered down with digital counterfeits, superficial ties, this message is a wake-up call. You can't do life alone. You can't do life alone. It's over. The lone ranger mentality's got to die. Because real fulfillment, happiness, and true peace comes from an authentic connection with not only Jesus Christ, yes, but also His people. And the opposite on the negative side is also true. Isolation over a long period of time leads to stress, frustration, and a lack of overall purpose and direction. We're coming out of a season in which maybe we've forgotten about this, but we're coming out of a season of a lot of isolation. Many of you had your year cut short, sports cut, a lot of things. Me personally, I got COVID in 2020. And now, listen, I dealt with isolation, I dealt with quarantine, I dealt with loneliness for sure, and I understand absolutely. Many of us are affected differently by COVID, and that many of us maybe lost people or dealt with severe trauma, so I'm not trying to diminish that. But what I am trying to highlight is the isolation as a result of COVID. So I just want to get that out there and be fair to that I did not deal with the worst case scenario. But I did have COVID, and that was probably my most significant run-in with like true isolation, loneliness. I mean, I was literally in quarantine. And the tough, COVID was extra tough for several reasons. Thank the Lord, I did not have as severe symptoms, but here's what happened. I got COVID in 2020 when COVID was unknown. So not many people had COVID yet. By the time I got COVID, and people were like, whoa, Nick's the test subject. We'll see what happens to him. And, see how this guy fares. Well, it was that. So a lot of people were freaked out that I had COVID initially because it was super early. Number two problem, I had just moved to a new spot. So I was moving from one rent house where I live with Blair. If you didn't know, Blair and I were roommates for a while. Lived with Blair, and then I was supposed to move into an apartment that Danielle and I were going to share when we got married. We were engaged at the time and going to be married shortly. But I had 2 months in between the leases, so I needed to find a place to crash. And so the Smith family, if you don't know the Smith family, that's Clyde Smith, Ben Smith, and Annie Smith. I lived with them when I interned in 2017, so I was like, yo, let's run it back. Let's hang out. So I move into their pool house. So keep in mind, not their house, their pool house in their backyard, which was, hey, I'll go with the digs. I'm just happy to have a place to lay my head. So I'm living there, but the day I move in, I test positive for COVID. And none of them have been around someone who has COVID, has obviously had COVID themselves, and so they're I'm trying to be fair to this, but they're freaking out. And, maybe to their credit, I would have freaked out a little bit too, And so, COVID guy literally on their property, not in their house, but on their property. And there's one situation that illustrates it perfectly of how isolated I was. Because no one was calling me, no one was talking to me. Of course, no one was coming around me. They probably felt even from a phone call, they were going to contract what I had. And so it was day 4 or something. I was counting down the days. I was I knew exactly what day it was in my quarantine. It was day 4, and I was eating nothing but salads. And I don't really know why I was eating nothing but salads, but I was I made it so far without, for some reason, I needed on this particular day a fork. I had everything I needed in this pool house, so don't think they left me stranded. It was cool, but I needed a fork on this day. And for some reason, I don't know what I'd done with my fork, but it was gone. So I'm obviously not going to venture into the house because that's I'll get arrested probably. I don't even know what would happen, but I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. So I'm kind of wandering, is someone home? I don't know. It's kind of in the middle of shut down. So most people are home, but I'm is anyone in the kitchen? And I'm kind of so I'm in the backyard. So the pool house is literally on their pool in the backyard. And I'm looking kind of through the window, is anybody in this kitchen who could help me out? And so I see Ben Smith, love Ben Smith. He interned for us this past summer, if you don't remember him. And I see him in the kitchen. And I'm perfect, Ben's in the kitchen. So I call Ben on the phone. I'm Ben, can you bring me a fork? And mind you, I am not knocking on the glass. I am as far as to those exit doors away. Everybody can look back there. It's 50 feet away from the patio door. I am not close to it. So I call him hi, can you bring me a fork? So he's you can just tell it was fear. I was what the? Okay. So he gets a fork from the drawer, puts a mask on. And I'm not asking him to hand me the fork or feed me the food. I'm asking him to just put it on the patio table, which if the patio door was here, the patio table is right there. And I am, mind you, that by the doors. He puts on a mask on his face, gets the fork, doesn't have to step out the door to put it on the thing. Steps out, boom, puts it there, runs back inside. And I'm kind of watching him. No, it gets better. I'm kind of watching him, and I'm all right, I'm already feeling some type of way. You ain't got to be that. He walks back inside, and I'm kind of watching him, takes his mask off, proceeds to wash his hands. As if somehow, some way, from 50, 60 feet away, I just got him sick. Now, lock on here for a second. Whether you had COVID, or you knew someone who had COVID, or kind of you got exposed to someone who had COVID, We all kind of were aware of like the isolation, the loneliness. Like at the least you were quarantined and out of school, right? And so a lot of us face this tough season of isolation. But for many of us, the loneliness never ended. Like, I might not be sick anymore, but I still feel isolated. Like my fever, I don't have a fever anymore, but it still feels like I'm in quarantine. Like my cough may have passed, but the difficulty in finding connection has not. And for us, you got to recognize isolation and loneliness affects every single person here. Whether you're extroverted or introverted, shy or talkative, in the in crowd and popular, or you're an outsider, it affects all of us. It comes in many forms. Sitting at home on a weekend, when you hope to be invited to a hangout with your friends, having so many things on your mind but no meaningful connections to share them with, having 100, 1,000 followers on Instagram and Snapchat, but no true friendships. Going through garbage, but having no loved ones to lean on. Walking to a classroom, a lunchroom, a locker room, and being anxious about who you can even sit with or sit next to. Being surrounded by acquaintances, but having no real connection. Sitting maybe in a crowded room, just like tonight. People all around you, but no real connection. Maybe just being in the popular crowd. You thought you were exempt from this. Being in the popular crowd, you play the sports, you do all the things. But never being open for fear that those same people would never accept you for who you really are. Now, if none of those things resonated with you, you're thinking to yourself, okay, sure, Nick, I'm good by myself. I don't even like people. Like, I prefer to be like by myself. I'm cool. Let me encourage you with something. If you feel like you don't need people, then you're not pursuing a big enough purpose. Look, you may be right. If all you're doing is playing video games, trying to get good grades, be good at sports, get into a certain college, yeah, you may be right. You don't need people to do all that. You can do all of that on your own. But if you're trying to change the world, if you want to make an impact on the planet, make a difference in people's lives, and glorify the Lord to the highest degree, you're going to need people. You're going to need friends. You're going to need a group, a little God squad, a little Christian crew. Do you know what I'm saying here? You can't do life alone. And I'm trying to emphasize this to you because there's so many people out here who think somehow, some way that they're strong enough, smart enough, wise enough to figure it out on their own. And I'm telling you, you never will. It will never happen. And so today we tackle loneliness. Today we put it to death. Today we kill it. And we go to war with it because God's best for us. God's best for us is not isolation. It is intimate, drama-free, can you believe it? Drama-free connection with Him and His people. And so today we work towards that by discussing three things. How to battle loneliness. Very practical, how to battle loneliness. And I'm telling you, if you try these things, keep repeating because they don't always solve the problem initially, of course, but these are great steps to take. So number one, write this down. How to battle loneliness. Number one is be adventurous. Be adventurous in your own way. In your own way. Proverbs 18:1 says this. Whoever isolates, everybody say isolates. Himself or herself, seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. You want a crazy fact? To connect with people, you have to be open about participating in the programs people go to. Shocker. Crazy. I know. But here's what you can't do. You can't complain about a lack of connection while simultaneously refusing to go find it. Oh, I don't have any friends. Well, where did you go last Friday? I don't know anybody. Well, did you go to church the last month? I don't have any friends. Have you introduced yourself to a single human in the last quarter of the year? I'm telling you, stop isolating yourself and being alone so much. It's not good for you. Is it comfortable? Yeah. Is it the best thing for you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And look, I've always kept it 100% with you guys. I've always told you, I might not always be right, but I'll always keep it real. We live in a culture right now where being a homebody is like really cool. Isolation, Netflix, and my couch are the most incredible things. For leisure, you betcha. For life change, not so much. I'm telling you what to get out there with people. And it's simple. Go to the gym with somebody. My personal favorite. Go to the gym with somebody. Study with a friend after school. You don't have to study by yourself. Go to Starbucks and study with somebody. And also, by the way, things are going to drop. I understand you guys have water bottles that are 75 pounds each. Listen, that happens. Here's what I need you to do. Other things will drop in the service. Lock in up here. I promise you. They will pick it up. It will be fine. We'll move on. Let's move on. You got me? If you got me, give me a thumbs up. Got you. I trust you. Let's go to work. Let's talk about being a homebody. Because like I said, 100% right here, I love my home. I pay a lot of money for my home. I like to be in my home. My wife does a great job decorating it. It's a great place to chill out. It is. But here's the warning for you. Sometimes being a homebody can breed bitterness. Well, how? Because our hearts get harder the longer we are alone. Hard towards people. We start to see them in a worse light and not the way that God has created them. Because it's really easy to judge people who we don't seek to know or understand. And you just got to hear me on this. I want to be fair to you. It's not bad to be alone ever. Sometimes you're right. It is better to be lonely than with bad company. And I would agree with that. But what I'm telling you is that it's not great for you to be alone for long seasons of time. If you're in the habit of always just sitting at the house on a weekend, never going out, never going to games, never being in the student sections, never going to Bible study in groups, because Sundays are for the groups, and we're going to talk about that. But going out and connecting with people, even though it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, or you don't like meeting new people, that's me, but it's also part of my job and a part of me being a flourishing human for the glory of God. I get it, but it's not good for you. It's comfortable and it's nice and it's easy, but it's not best. Because God's best for you is connection. But that only can happen by number 2 right here. By doing number 2 is be a hot person. Ever say hot? Hot. Ever say hot? Hot. Lock in here. Hot person. It's an acronym. Humble, open, and transparent. Humble, open, and transparent. Be a hot person. It says this in Galatians 6:2. Got me? Bear one another's burdens and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. Be humble, open, and transparent with the people around you who you want to be friends with. Here's what I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you to go share every single part and aspect of your life with any person that will listen to you. That's not the idea. I'm telling you to be selective, to be intentional about the people that you want in your life. We're going to talk about a little bit what type of people you should want in your life. But be humble, open, and transparent, because we all want that. We all want someone who's willing to be open with us, who's going to keep it 100% with us, who's going to keep it real. But how can we expect that from someone else if we're not willing to do it ourselves to them? Be humble, be open, be transparent, because you need to hear me on this. A lack of vulnerability breeds loneliness. A lack of vulnerability will breed loneliness, and loneliness can only be fixed through real vulnerability. Do you know why you feel alone? Do you know why you can sit in this crowd but lay your head down at night and feel restless and feel like nobody understands me? Nobody gets me for me. Do you know why? It's not because you're not in proximity. It's because we feel alone because we are not known. We feel alone because we are not known. All of our conversations are surface level. There's no one who really gets us because we're not willing to give ourselves to anybody. How could we? The last person we gave ourselves to gossiped about me and talked trash about me and basically ruined my reputation. How could I ever give myself to somebody else in that way? I get it. I get it. We feel alone because we are not known. But you got to be known. It's a gap we got to jump. Because sometimes, I was thinking about this even for myself. I'm surrounded by people. I'm a pastor. I'm in the church. And I've thought about this for me. Sometimes the most lonely we can feel is when we are surrounded by individuals who think that they know us but really don't. Like, I see you, you do the thing. You play football. You're a cheerleader. I see you. And everybody knows who you are, but they don't know you. They know your name. They follow you on Instagram, but they don't know you. They see you put up a shot on a Friday night, but they don't know what I deal with. That's lonely. They see you speak up here with a mic, but they don't know. That's isolation. That's isolation. That's why it's important to be known, to not be ashamed to be fully known. And you're like thinking to yourself, Nick, that sounds nice in a message, but I could never tell some people some of the stuff I got going on in my life. Nick, if you knew about what I watch, what I say, what I do, what I did yesterday about X, Y, and Z, you wouldn't be saying that. I'm telling you that it's important to be known to somebody. I was talking to our 8:30 Bible study hour, which if you don't know, we have an 8:30 Bible study hour. It's about kind of like early bird gets the word. Ashley has a shirt on about it. And at that group, I threw out a huge piece of encouragement about the accountability groups. That stuff made me like almost emotional, because I would have given anything to be in high school, junior high, and had something like that, where I could look at someone in my own age and like share with them what's actually going on in my life. And I thought it was just a beautiful sight to see all of them, hopefully, being vulnerable in a setting at church. And I encourage you, if you're like, Nick, I want to be known, come to 8:30 Bible study on a Sunday. You're like, Nick, that's early, but it's worth it. I don't think I can wake up in time. You should. And you should show up, because it's worth it. You got to get in a group. You got to get in a group, because you got to be fully known. And for me personally, you're like thinking, Nick, oh my gosh, if I tell some people what I got going on, that will be so weird. Like I feel like that would be so awkward. And for me personally, I will risk being awkward with the chance that I will get connection than be fake, falsely accepted, and disconnected. Being this type of person is one crucial step to being connected. But the last step is this. Number 3 is be a friend. Be a friend. Proverbs 18:24 says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. To find a friend, you got to be a friend. And we all come into this world looking for somebody, looking for us. Every single one of us has this desire to be safe, seen, soothed, and secured in this world. And I don't care how manly or tough you think that you are. I play all the sports. I don't need people. I'm good. It's the grind. I grind in the dark, and I don't care. I don't need anybody. I don't buy it. Because at some point or another, your little idol of sports or band or cheerleading or grades will go away, and you're going to have to look up and realize, oh wait, turns out I need people and friends just like the rest of the world. And we all want that. But before we can get that, we got to be that for other people. So I just want to give you guys 5 ingredients for deep friendship. Super quick. 5 ingredients for deep friendship. If you're like, Nick, I want good friends. I want to be a great friend. What does that require? This right here. Number 1, a deep friendship. First ingredient of a deep friendship is proximity. Proximity. You got to do life together. Do life together. See each other physically and talk to each other and meet together and eat together and hang out together. Work, I don't know, but do life together. I love it that there's video games and streams and social media, but at some level you need a friend who is local, who you can spend time with, physical time with. Number 2 is you need vulnerability. Second ingredient is vulnerability. Be open and honest. Are you a hot friend, if you will? Are you open? Are you honest? And recognizing vulnerability is not sharing all the bad things about your life. It's not complaining. In fact, the difference between complaining and transparency is that complaining seeks relief. Transparency seeks healing and connection. You need someone you can be transparent with, not just someone you can whine to and gossip about and talk about all the problems and bad things going on in your life. Vulnerability. The third one is accountability. Accountability. Friends keep friends in check. A friend doesn't let a friend miss Bible study. A friend doesn't let friend just sleep in for 8:30 Bible study when you know they're supposed to be there at 8:30, but they're late, and you text them and you blow up their phone to make sure that they get there. A friend doesn't let a friend throw their life away on silly habits and routines. A friend doesn't let a friend slack off in sports or slack off in the classroom. A friend keeps each other accountable. Accountability. The fourth ingredient is a shared mission. A shared mission. You got to ask yourself this one question. Are me and my friend pursuing the same thing? Are they a Christian? Because if you're a Christian, the only thing you should be pursuing is, I want to make my life look more like Jesus. I want to honor the Lord to a higher degree. And the last one is consistency. A very rare trait nowadays, consistency. Is your friendship consistent? Are you a consistent friend? Or is it volatile? Is it volatile? Is it a situation in which, like, yeah, we kind of got into a fight like a month ago and now we're friends again, and then next month we might get into another fight because someone said such and such and they did this and did that and looked at me funny and now we're not as cool as we used to be? Or is it consistent? Is it always assuming the best intentions of the other person? Because a real friendship is consistent. It takes about 200 hours for an acquaintance to become a great friend. Are you willing to be consistent and give the other person a chance and put the time in to make that happen? Or will you just fall off into acquaintance land, to Pal Island, another person who doesn't understand me and know me fully? You might be asking at this point, all right, Nick, I got you. Proximity, vulnerability, accountability, shared mission, consistency. That's great. I'm going to do all those things. But what happens when I do all of the things and I'm still not seeing fruit in my friendships? What happens if I do every one of these little ingredients and I get stiff-armed and no one wants to be my friend, or the people that I feel like I want to be connected to aren't connecting with me? Believe this. Trust God that connection will come your way. That people in this world are used to toxicity, drama, and complexity. Genuine intentions and kindness may confuse them initially, but it's only a matter of time. Keep at it. It's a worthy pursuit. Keep moving forward, because you got to believe it, and you got to trust me on this, and you got to trust God's word on this. You are not created to do life alone. You were not built for loneliness. You're built for connection. But you'll never really be able to truly connect to others before connecting to Christ. You'll never be able to establish strong relationships with people before you have a relationship with God. And here's one thing you need to know about Jesus. Jesus doesn't see crowds. He sees people. He doesn't see the human race. He sees each individual heart. That means he sees you. He sees you. He sees the condition of your heart. He sees your passions, your desires, and he knows you. And he looks at everything that you got going on, every mistake you can think of, every shortcoming you have in your life, and says, I want a connection with you. I want a relationship with you. Well, Nick, you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I watched. You don't know what I've said. You don't know how I treated my parents or my friends. You don't know that. I don't. God does, and he looks at you anyways and says, I love you. Many of us are feeling lonely right now. You're like, Nick, I got friends, but I still feel like I'm missing something. Like I still feel like I'm lonely, like isolated. It's because you're missing the one relationship we all need, even bigger than friends, is a God who loves you. The same one who left the grave empty is the same one that wants a relationship with you. Because even a great friend will let you down. But do you know the God that never will? Because you can tonight. You can. So let's bow our heads across the room right now. Nobody moving around.